Well, this is probably one of the stupidest stories that we've ever talked about, but nonetheless, it's a very serious one in a very critical time. Pierre Poilievre is very directly and specifically under attack by a bunch of weirdos, and not physically being attacked or under attack, but his ballot in Pierre Poilievre's riding, which borders that of Mark Carney. Mark Carney's in Nepean. Pierre Poilievre is in Carleton. They're right next door, both in Ottawa. You have Pierre Poilievre's ballot. Instead of it being like 4 or 5 candidates like this big, the ballot sheet is 6 feet tall. Like it's insane because there's, I think, over 90. I think there's like 91 candidates. And this is no mistake. This is quite literally by design. And the person who is orchestrating this, because it is a protest against Pierre Poilievre, is being interviewed by CBC to explain his position on why he's doing this and the fact that he was planning on doing this to Mark Carney, but it just didn't work out in time. Yeah, kind of weird. So sit back and let's get angry together, because this is absolutely insane. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, please don't take it out on me. Instead, do the opposite. I really want to encourage you guys to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't yet already. It does really help grow the channel. We're on route to 500,000 subscribers here in Canada, which is absolutely like mind-blowing, totally insane. And, you know, liking videos like this and subscribing to channels like mine and all the others, it's really helping combat what we're about to see. Literal people are trying to block democracy, saying this is under the protest of fighting for democracy, which doesn't really make any sense. Like, yes, you have a right to put your name on a ballot, but you're specifically targeting the man who's running for prime minister instead of like a smaller person or even the prime minister himself. So saying that this is a democratic thing seems very weird, and it seems very weird that CBC has given this kid a platform, and you'll understand why I'm calling him a kid in a moment. So without further ado, let's get right into this video.
Voters across the country lined up for the first day of advanced polls, making this the first day of large-scale voting in this election. In some cases, people stood in long lines for more than an hour, waiting for their chance to vote for who they think should lead this country. But in one Ottawa suburban riding, voting could take longer due to the size of the ballots. Here's the lay of the land in Canada's capital, where Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal leader Mark Carney's ridings share a border. Poilievre is running in the riding of Carleton, where he has been the MP for the area since 2004. And this time, Poilievre will be facing more opponents than ever, because there are 91 confirmed candidates, and it's 91 in his riding. This is largely due to protesters running to bring attention to their call for electoral reform. One of those candidates is Mark Mutter, and he joins me now in the studio. Mark Mutter, it's good to meet you. Thanks for coming in today.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, you can tell this kid is fresh out of college or university and a wacko of a liberal. I mean, we had blackface with the prime minister. Now you got babyface. What is this kid, 18, 19, 20 years old, and committing this type of a level of protest against Pierre Poilievre? Something feels weird. It's almost like this is being funded by somebody, and I don't quite know who that is, but we might find out throughout this video.
This is not your first time on a ballot, or even the longest ballot. You were one of the candidates in Salle-Verdun. Tell me why you want to do this the first time and why you're up for it a second time. What are you trying to do here?
When I turned 18, it was my first time voting, and at the same time, it was the by-election season in Salle-Verdun last year. Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, I've been following elections on election night, seeing what's going on, and I've personally been noticing how there is an unfair amount of votes being attributed to each candidate. I mean, you oftentimes have minority governments which gain a lot fewer votes which gain a lot of votes but gain a lot less seats in parliament afterwards than they actually deserve. You're seeing a lot of vote splitting. You're seeing a lot of candidates that deserve to be represented, but even though they actually have votes, they have zero representation in parliament, and I think that should be changed.
So you want proportional representation or ranked ballot? What is your preferred system here?
The longest ballot is a citizens' initiative. There's a lot of different people viewing this in different ways. A lot of people believe in representative democracy. A lot of others believe in ranked choice voting. I personally prefer ranked choice voting, as I believe that's the fairest way of doing it, but either way, we're all united against first past the post.
Okay, so
all united against first past the post, yet specifically targeting Pierre Poilievre and not his rival, this illegitimate random banker who is running for the legitimate prime minister's job. I mean, this seems very biased, and you're going to hear in a few moments that he's guising this under, it's a fair protest, and it's not fair. It's very, very weird.
You had just turned 18 when you ran, so you're 18 years old, and
19.
this is you're 19, and this is your second time running
Correct.
in a federal election. Okay, here's what I need to ask you about, though. The ballot, all right? You call it the longest ballot. We do arts and crafts here at Power and Politics. This is a replica of what people in the riding of Carleton are going to get, right, when they go in on election day.
I mean, how is that even fair? Look at the size of that ballot. That is absolutely insane. 19 years old and already this damaging as a political activist. I think that this is a radical left-wing extremist, quite literally, in the making, single-handedly has orchestrated at 19 and 18 years old a ballot that is 91 people long on the next prime minister's riding. Like that blows my mind. That blows my mind. And why don't we have rules to protect against this? What are their platforms? What are their ideas? I understand you only need 150 signatures, but that can so easily be abused. That's like saying I can run for, world supreme leader if I get 100 signatures on an online petition. I mean, I could personally easily go to almost every single riding in a major city, and actually not in major cities. I could just do it almost anywhere because the amount of subscribers in Canada I have, I could easily put myself on every ballot across this country if I want. Maybe I should do that. It's probably too late. Maybe next time. We'll see. But again, I feel like there should be rules and regulations around this type of coordinated attack, because that's kind of what it is.
And you can see the challenges that is going to create for filling out. And this has been a nightmare for the staff who have to count this stuff. And they're going extra late. This is a pretty big riding with Pierre Poilievre running there. You worried about backlash from this? I mean, the results for the leader of the Conservative Party may not be known to 2, 3 in the morning, and I think people might be frustrated with this.
It's not the first time we're getting this concern raised with us. Last time we were riding in Verdun, we had the same questions asked. Mm-hmm. We had the same people complaining and wondering if this is going to prevent proper elections from happening. And from what I've seen firsthand, being there until 2 a.m., close to 2 a.m. last year, in the polling station, seeing it get counted, it was not as big of an issue as people believe it to be.
Okay, so if it's not as big of an issue as people try to make it seem, then what's the purpose of it? You're either doing something to immensely disrupt, you're either doing something to immensely complement something, or you're just doing it to waste your own time and people's time. Like, I don't understand when you do something of this, to this level, to this capacity where it takes a lot of time and effort. This is like next level trolling that maybe I'm too old at 31 years old to understand. And maybe it's a new generation of people that are just putting in hours and hours and hours of time into these long schemed protests. But no, you're absolutely trying to disrupt something. This just doesn't make any sense.
As a matter of fact,
2 a.m. is really late to get results in a riding, right? Like
correct.
It normally happens at a pretty crisp way that you're able to get a critical mass to make a projection. That is late. You may not think it's difficult, but for those people who've worked long days, it is, right?
Certainly, but it did start a conversation for a lot of them. You have people who are voting there for the whole day. They're seeing a long ballot, and they don't know what's going on. And actually talking to them about it, talking to them about why this is happening and why I believe this should be changed, and how there's a whole group of citizens who are coming together to actually get this conversation started on a national level is amazing. And a lot of people actually supported the group when this was talked about.
Right, but do you think it's built a national conversation for electoral reform? I mean, there are you look at cost of living, you look at Donald Trump, you look at inflation, you look at sovereignty and security and all of these things, like those core issues, and I'm not saying the state of democracy isn't important, but they overshadow everything else, right? So do you think, what you guys did in St. Paul's and in LaSalle has actually resonated beyond just those little moments?
Well, this happening right now is proof that this is starting a conversation. And I firmly believe that in order to have a country that's able to fight on the world stage, we need to have a proper democracy that actually represents what the people want.
How does putting 91 people's names on a ballot represent democracy at any level? That doesn't make any sense. People in those communities, they haven't provided any platforms, any policies, nothing. I understand that those are the current rules and regulations. Congrats, kiddo. You've manipulated the system to do these fun little protests, but this is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. You have to be able to provide something, bring something to the table to run as prime minister, right? Or to run in politics in general, or to try to block the prime minister. And the fact that you are doing this with no real intent to cause any disruption of anything, according to your own words, but still trying to cause a massive disruption and ultimate confusion in Pierre Poilievre's own riding doesn't make any sense. So, of course, he's tried to do this in Mark Carney's riding, right? Right?
We currently have a lot of times in the history of this country in which we've had governments that don't truly represent what people voted for. And I believe to actually stand up on the world stage, to actually have a strong country in the future, we need to properly represent everybody's votes.
Why did you pick Carleton this time? What is it? Is this targeting Pierre Poilievre for a specific reason, or was it just time for a Conservative to be nailed because you did it in Liberal ridings last time?
Over the last few times of us running this, we've been accused of only running this in Liberal ridings. So this time we figured we're going to do this in Mark Carney's riding and in Pierre Poilievre's riding. But purely logistically, organizing the whole thing is really difficult. You need to gather 150 signatures per candidate in each riding, and that is very difficult to do. We were about to actually do this in Nepean and this time in Pierre Poilievre's riding. However, we just couldn't get the amount of signatures required to do this in Mark Carney's riding. So we figured might as well finish this off right now, just in one of the ridings, and do it properly.
So the wording of this is what's so scary. Might as well finish this off right now and do it in one riding. If this was a fair protest that you claim to be, you claim that you've done this in Liberal ridings before, yet here you are purposely only doing this to Pierre Poilievre, and then all of a sudden you ran out of time. It wasn't that thought out to where you could have done it in Mark Carney's literal neighboring riding. I'm just not buying it. Something about this seems extremely fishy. Was this something that Mark Carney funneled money down and gave to this kid, this incompetent, lost kid? I don't really get it, but this is very odd and hysteric and almost manic behavior. And again, I'm going back to the points earlier. We should look at maybe protecting this from happening, because with the rise of social media, like I said, I could pretty much go to like any single riding I want, and there's at least like 50 people in that town who are subscribed to me. I just based off of analytics, right? I'm not like every town, but most towns, and I could just put my name on a federal ballot. Like, why do that if you're not looking to be serious? Like, politics is supposed to be serious, and this type of, comical little protest that's happening, it's just, it doesn't add to our democracy. It almost belittles it, right?
Okay, so why do you think that was, right? Because, Pierre Poilievre has represented Carleton since 2004. Like, that is not an insignificant amount of time. He's seen as having a very strong base of support out there. How did you get 150 signatures times, 85 candidates or 86 candidates that you're running? Yeah, because to bring it all the way up to 91, because the Greens are running, the NDP, the Conservatives and Liberals. I mean, how were you able to convince voters in the leader of the Conservative Party's riding to sign those signatures, sign up?
People are surprisingly sympathetic towards the cause. Even last year in Montreal when we were doing this, I was out there gathering signatures, and people are curious about this. People are really used to the status quo. A lot of, especially younger people, are tired of the same thing happening over and over again. A lot of people from my generation are used to growing up for their whole lives, seeing this unfair system of first past the post being used in all the elections, and a lot of people truly want change to happen. So it's not difficult to get somebody to just sign a paper and to hope for the best afterwards, since I believe it truly represents what people want.
There you go. It's not that difficult to get people to sign up for these things. So it's just weird. So by your own logic, if it's not difficult, then why didn't you also do this in Mark Carney's riding? Why only in Pierre Poilievre's riding? I mean, am I the only one that's listening to this thinking, this doesn't fully make sense. Like I can try to understand the mentality of a young little shithead, for lack of better words, and think of what it's like to try and just cause chaos, but then say you're not causing chaos. But none of these claims, like the dots aren't connecting. There's like missing pieces to the puzzle here.
So why didn't it work in Nepean in Mark Carney's riding? Do they not care about electoral reform or representation?
That is not the
or
case.
like what happened there?
No, it's actually just gathering the signatures. I mean, we had to stand there for multiple hours in each of the ridings, and I believe it was rainy on one of the days, so we just couldn't get the amount of papers out of the way properly. So it was purely logistical.
So what do you say to people who look at this and say this is a stunt, and they're annoyed by it, and they think it's going to slow things down, and you've got an election that, you know, for older people like me who, you know, it's been a long time since I was 19 years old, who see this as maybe the most important election of their lifetime, and something like this is happening. What do you say to people who are going to be annoyed by this?
People are certainly allowed to view that way, and I sympathize with them. I mean, it's pretty simple to see how this complicates the election in a few ways. However, I really stand by my words that it is very important to properly change the way that our elections are held. If we really want our country to be strong, if we want our people to have confidence in our electoral system, if you want to have governments that truly represent what our people want, we need to have a system that's more equitable, that is more fair, and that better shows what people want in our country. And this is actually getting a lot of media attention. This is happening right now. We've been having a lot of attention back in Montreal, all across the country, of people tuning in and figuring out what the hell is going on, why are there long ballots? And people are learning about electoral reform in a way that they never would otherwise. You don't just approach people on the street and go, hey, have you ever heard of first past the post? We should change it. You don't just do that to people. You actually have to gain their attention. Okay, so on this ballot, you are... It'd be the second column.
Yeah, yeah, there you are. You're right here. In La Salle-Verdun, you got 20 votes, I think, 0.1% of the vote, but that still put you in the top 10 just because of the way that thing went. I mean, do you want to do this for a career? Do you think you're going to go into politics? I mean, you're a young man. You've got a lot of options ahead of you. But, you know, do you think this is something you want to do, or is this just a cause for you at this point in your life?
It is purely a cause for me. I'm studying in civil engineering, completely unrelated to politics in any way. But it is a field that's still related to the way our government is run. You know, you're seeing a lot of infrastructure built, and you have to follow along with how ministries work. And seeing how it's all still fundamentally related to the way people vote, I just want it to change. I just want the status quo to finally be gone, and for young people and people of all ages, as a matter of fact, to stand up for what they believe in and to have a fair democracy.
All right. Well, Mark, my dad is a civil engineer. He had a pretty good career out of it. So good luck in your studies. That's Mark Mutter, running in Carleton as part of the Longest Ballot Initiative. Thank you, sir. Good to meet you.
Thank you.
So there you go. Pierre Poilievre's riding is under attack. His ballot is under attack. Now, is this going to be a make or break from Pierre Poilievre's entire existence? And are people going to have a difficult time finding him? I don't think so. I think Pierre's name is probably going to be at the top since he's an actual member of parliament and everyone else is just kind of a joke. And now that it's been broadcasted on CBC, if there's anything about burying Pierre's name at the bottom of the list or something like that, it's not going to reflect well. And there's going to be lawsuits and a whole bunch of, you know, litigious acts and stuff against Elections Canada. It's going to be a total nightmare for everybody involved. So I truly believe that they'll still keep Pierre's name at the top of the ballot, along with, you know, the Liberal who's running in that riding, the Green Party, if there even is one, and NDP, if there even is one in Pierre's riding. But again, doing this and then getting, you know, airtime on CBC to the country to broadcast why you're doing this, it's amplifying the message that radical extremism isn't as big of a problem on the right as what the media has been saying. In fact, they're glorifying it on the left. I would consider this radical extremism, left-wing radical extremism. Maybe I'm trying to, like, you know, hype it up too much, but truly, I mean, this is a little bit insane, and it's quite frankly absolutely absurd. That's the end of the video, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't take it out on the messenger, please. Instead, reverse your anger into that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn post notifications on so you can actually be notified of upcoming videos, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye for now.